Right now, I'm challenging myself to see if I can make 128 Regulation H teams that are each different from one another over the course of 128 days. Why 128, you might ask? At the end of the 128 days, we're going to do something special where we battle every team against each other in a single elimination bracket to see which team emerges on top. There will be some competitively strong teams, there will be some gimmick teams, and there will be some probably a good number of goofs and gaffs in there, so if you want to follow through to the end, subscribe so that you can keep up with each day. But without further ado, let's move on to day 47. Alright everybody, welcome back to another video, and in today's video, we are going to be going over an Appletun focused team. And if I'm being honest, I had a bit of a rough day today, and trying to build this Appletun team has not made it better. I still feel like this Appletun team needs a lot more work. However, this video is already going up super late as I am recording this, so unfortunately we have to kind of let Appletun go here. So Appletun is getting the short end of the stick kind of when it comes to making these teams, but I don't think this team is like the worst thing in the world. It just needs better things, needs planned out a little bit more. But let's start off with all the Pokemon individually, as first we have Indeedee, and this is just a pretty classic Indeedee where we're going to be redirecting and helping handing the Pokemon that we want to get out of Trick Room, and we have the Terra Fairy, Dazzling Gleam option, and we also have the Psychic Seed for increasing our special defense, and we're Psychic Surge because that's what you do with Indeedee, you set up your Psychic Terrain, so just a classic Indeedee redirection set here. Next up, we got Armarouge, and this Armarouge set is going to be based on getting up the Trick Room, probably next to Indeedee, and once we have the Trick Room up, or if we just want to get a quick attack into one Pokemon before getting the Trick Room up, we have the signature move Armor Cannon, which is a 120 fire type move that lowers the defense and special defense of the Pokemon that used it, so we can get a lot of really good base damage, and if nothing is able to hit us under the Trick Room, then we don't care about our defense drops because we can just keep spamming armor cannons. As well as you also have the option of Psy Spam with the expanding force, and we have the Power Herb Meteor Beam option, so if we want to hit something that we can't hit with armor cannon or expanding force, the Meteor Beam is a really good one-turn nuke option to get rid of any Pokemon that are on the field, since it gives us a special attack boost, and if we're under Trick Room with the special attack boost, then Armarouge can just go crazy sometimes. And since we're running Trick Room, I decided to put Ursaluna on the team, and this is a pretty simple Ursaluna set, as we're just putting all of our stuff into HP and attack, and we're Flame Orb Guts, as all Hisuian Ursaluna are, and we're going to be using Headlong Rush because not every Pokemon on this team appreciates the Earthquake, especially since we're not running the Wide Guard on the Armarouge, and we have a Steel typing Caparaja, so we're just going for that single target Headlong Rush, but Headlong Rush's damage also isn't decreased by grassy terrain being set up by the opponent, which is a main counterplay to this team. But we also have the Stab Facade option, and with our Terra Normal we can make it so that Stab Facade is going to be hitting anything for very, very hard, but we also have that option for the substitute in case something is in front of us and wants to go for an attack that isn't really threatening us. We could go with the substitute option to make it so that Ursaluna can have a little safety net for it, and protect for getting up our guts is always good. So now let's talk about Appletun. Appletun is a Pokemon that I originally really liked. Well, I mean, I still do like Appletun. I mean, who could ever hate that face? But the idea with Appletun is that it is a body press iron defense user, so we can use Appletun's pretty decent like special bulk into eventually physical attackers, so that once we get up our iron defenses to +6, Appletun is going to be very hard to remove off the field. And we also have the thick fat so that we can have resistances to fire and ice type moves, which we're not weak to fire type moves right now, but being weak to ice type if we terrestrialize into our fighting type to get stab on our body presses, like, it's pretty neat. And Leftovers is also going to give us some good healing over time for whenever we're setting up our iron defenses. And Appletun has a signature move, Apple Acid, which lowers the special defense of the target whenever we hit it with Apple Acid. And there's no Pokemon in the game that can be immune to both Body Press and Apple Acid, unless it's like a Terra Ghost Hisuian Goodra with Sap Sipper. So being able to wall physical attackers and then clicking Apple Acid into them like 4 times is like pretty consistent in theory. Because each time you hit the Apple Acid, you decrease their special defense, and a lot of the tanks don't really have anything whenever you start lowering their special defense in order to keep up with Appletun. in theory. Next up, we got Galarian Slowpoke, and since Galarian Slowpoke is not a fully evolved Pokemon, we can run the Eviolite on it, and since we're not a fully evolved Pokemon, we're actually we should be slower. We're really slow. Like, we're even slower than Torkoal here, even though we don't have any attacking moves for Torkoal, but we can pretty consistently get up the Trick Room since we're such a tanky Pokemon. We also have the option for clicking Side Heal Pulse into any of our Pokemon like Ursaluna or Appletun or Armarouge in order to heal them up, and since we're so slow, inside the Trick Room we'll be getting that healing first off. And we also have the option for the Light Screen in order to decrease the power of special attacks, and that also helps Appletun since Appletun doesn't have a way to increase its special defense by itself. And Slowpoke is also going to be rocking the Yawn just in case we need to get a guaranteed sleep on something that is going to probably stay in on the next turn. We can put them to sleep with Slowpoke, and that'll give Appletun more time to run. And unfortunately, Galarian Slowpoke doesn't have Oblivious, so we have to be running a Regenerator, which is not super great because we pretty much have to get Trick Room up and then leave, even though once we get Trick Room up with Slowpoke, we're the slowest thing on the field, so we really want to stay in with Slowpoke. And also we're Terra Dark because Dark makes it so that we can't be Prankster Taunted, but we can kind of handle Prankster Taunt anyways with Indeedee on the field, since Indeedee is probably going to be redirected for Slowpoke. And Dark also gives us resistances to everything that we were previously weak to. And last but not least, we have Copperajah, who I love my Sheer Force mons, don't get me wrong, but Copperajah, its move pool is not that large, specifically when you consider moves that you can use Sheer Force for. But on Copperajah, we have the Stab Iron Head, which has a 30% chance to flinch, but because of Sheer Force, which, in case you need me to brush you up on Sheer Force will negate all secondary effects on moves, so Iron Head will no longer have a chance to flinch, but it will get a 1.3 times power boost. And also, Sheer Force works in combination with Life Orb for a reason that nobody understands. But Pokemon with Sheer Force and using moves that would have secondary effects do not take the recoil from the Life Orb, so we get another free 1.3 times boost on top of that. And then just for type coverage options, we have the Rock Slide for hitting both opponents, and we have the Play Rough mostly just for hitting Dragon type since we are a Steel type. And we're Terra Water on Copperajah because water resists things like fire and water and just overall good. Anything that we can't resist with Steel, we're probably resisting it with water since those are the two best singular defensive types in the game. So yeah, that's the team. I'm not quite sure if I just haven't been playing teams that this team isn't like good against, but I'm very mentally drained at this point. So let's go over some games that I have scrapped together at this point in order to show you kind of what my thought process was in making this team. So without further ado, let's get into some battles. Okay, so this first battle I had was against the team of a person who I think was trying to try out as many Pokemon as they possibly could. And these are all best of 3 open team sheet games, which maybe is why I'm running into so much difficulty using this team, is that I should have just made it a closed team sheet team, but I just kind of wanted to wrap up open team sheet teams because we're about to go into a stretch of closed team sheet teams. But the battle starts off and we lead Indeedee Armarouge because I want to get up Trick Room, and they lead Shiftry and Barraskewda, and thankfully the Barraskewda is not Propeller Tail, which if it was, Armarouge would be in quite a pickle here as we'd have to Terra Grass Armarouge. But Indeedee's going to follow me, and it's going to catch the Throat Chop from the Barraskewda. It's going to catch Knock Off from Shiftry, as Armarouge is pretty safely able to get up the Trick Room here. And now we get to get in the Appletun, and they decide to swap out their Shiftry for Electros, and we get up the defense boost with Appletun, because I felt like it was pretty safe at that point. But the Barraskewda actually just Terra Dragons and clicks Scale Shot, and it gets all 5 scales on the Scale Shot, which, I mean, thankfully none of them crit, but that's going to do a lot of damage to Appletun, even with the defense boost. We get the Body Press. Body Press does not KO, but Drain Punch also doesn't KO Appletun from the Electros. And the Electros is actually super slow because it underspeeds Armarouge in the Trick Room. But Expanding Force takes out both, and I figure Shiftry is the biggest threat at this point, so I just decided to Armor Cannon into the Shiftry in order to get rid of it. But Haxorus Sword Stance is here, and we only have 1 turn of Trick Room left, but thankfully I don't think the Haxorus actually had Trick Room, and we click the Expanding Force and Body Press into the Haxorus in order to get rid of it. So the second game, I decide to lead the same way as before, but this time the opponent decides to lead Electros and Shiftry, which I just decided to follow me, and we take the knockoff since we used our Psychic Seed, so the knockoff isn't getting boosted. But the Electros immediately decides to start going for the coils, but the Electros doesn't really have anything to touch Armarouge, because if I remember correctly, the Electros was like Thunder Punch, Fire Punch, Coil, and something else, but that move didn't do any damage, so I Terrestrialized into Grass just in case Shiftry wanted to attack into Armarouge this turn, or they wanted to Thunder Punch into Armarouge on this next turn, but they decided to go for another Coil, as I just clicked the Expanding Force and Helping Handed there, specifically to try and hit Armarouge, but the Shiftry goes for the Leaf Blade, and that's going to take out Indeedee, and now they have Probopass in the back, and they White Guard with Probopass for a reason I'm not quite sure, because we can just click Armor Cannon into Shiftry in order to take it out here. And now it is Appletun with the defense boost versus Probopass, who is quad weak to the body press, and another Pokemon that they have in the back, while we still have Armarouge to deal damage. So yeah, that's kind of theoretically how the team is supposed to work, even though we only really got to show off 3 Pokemon there. But let's perhaps go into some games where this team doesn't work, and I think I should have just played better. Okay, so here we have a balanced team where they have Rillaboom, Incineroar, and Rotom, but they also had the Choice Scarf Monkey, and they could just set up with Goldango by redirecting with Clefable, so not a lot of things that I'm super excited to see here, and we start Indeedee Armarouge, and they start Goldango and Incineroar, and I kind of figured that Incineroar was going to leave so that they can bring in Rillaboom here, so they Nasty Plot with Goldango and Parting Shot with Indeedee, so I was kind of right here, and I think this is the game. No, this is the game where I just decided to get Trick Room. I can't remember if I saved the game or not, but in either the first game or the second game, this is the second game. So in the second game, I decided to Armor Cannon into the Rillaboom, and it lived on 1%, so not a great time. But here I Armor Cannon into the Rillaboom, and it got the KO, which was nice. It's the Goldango, Mega Rains both slots, and it doesn't KO either slot because of Indeedee's special defense boost, and Armarouge is just resisting it. As now they bring in the Incineroar, and I decide to follow me, and Expanding Force the Goldango for as much damage as I can get, because I want to switch into the 2 Pokemon that I had in the back. Now that I had dealt with Rillaboom, I felt like we were pretty safe to use Copperajah to deal damage into Mons, but they make a good swap here into Clefable as I tried to play rough into Goldango. So what I wish I would have done here is I would have just read the Incineroar switch into a Pokemon in the back, because I probably pretty safely could have Iron-Headed the Incineroar slot, and then that would have dealt with the Clefable. But the Goldango is getting healing behind grassy terrain, and this turn they do redirect, and Clefable is unaware of the body press, but the body press still just does nothing, as the Iron Head is what is going to clap the Clefable, and the opponent gets to spend their last turn of Trick Room, getting up another Nasty Plot. Now Incineroar is back on the field since Psychic Terrain has ended, gets to fake out whatever it wants. I decided to call that they were going to fake out Appletun here, and I play rough Goldango. And that Intimidate means that we don't get to KO the Goldango, which is just super unfortunate, as the Mega Rain doesn't KO either slot, but the knockoff is going to KO the Appletun, and Iron Head into Goldango to try and deal damage into it, and I Terra Water Copperajah since we have that left, but the knockoff from Incineroar is going to KO Copperajah. So I would say Copperajah coming in this game, it did do its job that I intended it to do, by like trying to hit the Fairy types and the Dragon types that Appletun was kind of struggling with. It's just that I didn't make the right prediction in that turn, which I really should have predicted that they were going to swap out that turn. I mean, I guess it is possible that they could have Parting Shot it out with Incineroar, but I think that was less likely since we could have just body pressed into the Incineroar with Appletun, but also the body press on Appletun wasn't really built up at that point, so hard to say. Okay, this is a battle that I had against a Ninetales Frosmoth team, and they also have like pretty dangerous elements in like the Talonflame and the Basket Legion that if we don't get up Trick Room, we're going to be mega struggling. And they decide to lead Luxray and Basket Legion, and we do Indeedee Armarouge, and Luxray gets up its Intimidate as we get up our Psychic Terrain, and I follow me so that Armarouge can do something. And Luxray actually has Snarl, which seems to be their main way of getting around Indeedee Armarouge, and
We're gonna see that they swap out into Frostmoth here as I try to do damage with the Expanding Force, and I kind of wanted Indeedee to get knocked out here, but I just hard swap in Ursaluna, and at this point I had Wide Guard on Armarouge instead of Meteor Beam, and we get to catch the Struggle Bug, and because of Wide Guard, the Frostmoth couldn't actually hurt anything on the field. I swap in Indeedee here, just hoping to get some damage, and we Facade into Luxray in order to get rid of it. So now we have a one-turn redirect with Indeedee as the opponent swaps in the Frostmoth, and we headlong rush that slot, and thankfully, even though Frostmoth resists it, it's a Frostmoth, so it dies to it, and the Dazzling Gleam breaks the Breloom's sash, but they get to take down our Ursaluna in response, and Trick Room ends, and they bring it back in Basket Legion, but now we get to Terra Grass on Armarouge and redirect one attack, so they Wave Crash into the Indeedee, and the Breloom tries to put to sleep Armarouge, but we're Terra Grass, so we get up our Trick Room again, and I believe the Pokemon that I had in the last slot was Appletun, which I feel like Appletun would have been able to Apple Acid into the Basket Legion, and then we could just normal Expanding Force into it in order to take it out, and Breloom can't touch anything at this point because it was Bullet Seed, Spore, Mach Punch, and a fourth thing that I don't remember, but it wasn't helpful for them trying to beat a Grass Armarouge and an Appletun. And they just decided to full crit the game off of that first turn, so we didn't get to do the rest of the best of three, unfortunately. And this is a game that I had against... I played a lot of Primarinas on ladder. Like, this team really struggles into Primarina if you can't just use Caparaja to click Ironhead into the Primarina and KO it in one hit. But this game starts out, and I actually decided to lead Caparaja specifically for the reason that I wanted to click Ironhead into the Primarina. And we click Helping Hand, and they taunt Indeedee, which is fine, which means we can't redirect next turn, and we take the Hyper Voice pretty well as we Ironhead, but this results in them bringing in Tauros, and I really don't want to lose Caparaja, so I decided to bring in Appletun, who would have resisted it thanks to the Thick Fat, but I decided to Flare Blitz into Indeedee, but Indeedee doesn't get knocked out, and at least gets a little bit of Dazzling Gleam damage in, as Tauros is able to get up a Substitute, and we just body press with Appletun here, maybe being a little passive because Umbreon is faster than Indeedee, but we're using Caparaja here to kind of bait the close combat while we're waiting for Appletun to wake up, but Appletun is getting taunted, so we can't Iron Defense again with Appletun. Now I bring in Armarouge here as my last Mon in order to catch the close combat and hope that Appletun is gonna wake up, and the Umbreon only has Foul Play to touch Appletun, and I body pressed into it this turn, fortunately on the turn that we woke up, but it's also the turn that they decided to Terra Poison. And Tauros is going to protect this turn, and they decided to Foul Play into Armarouge. And I feel like the play that I should have gone for here was just Trick Rooming with Armarouge, as this would allow Appletun to not be taunted, so he can more consistently build up body presses for the end game. We just tried doubling into Tauros, but Tauros protects. And so this turn I try to get up the Trick Room, but they correctly decide to close combat and Foul Play into Armarouge in order to take it out here, and Body Press is going to take Tauros' sub, but it's at 28% health, so it's at just good enough health to still live. And now Caparaja does get to protect, but Appletun is going to continue to be taunted, and just gets a little bit of chip into Rillaboom with the Body Press that we do have up, and they fake out Caparaja, because Caparaja is still a pretty good damage dealer at this point, and the Foul Play is going to do so much damage into Caparaja, as the Body Press continues to chip down Rillaboom for what it's worth, and they would hammer into Caparaja, and they click Yawn into Appletun again, as we try to get that Body Press into Rillaboom, but Rillaboom just barely survives it because of its Grassy Terrain recovery, and Woodhammer is going to take out Caparaja, as Rillaboom is also taken out by its Woodhammer, and now it is Appletun versus the world, as we see how much the Body Press does, but unfortunately it's just not enough, as now Appletun is going to fall to sleep, and Tauros is going to go for the Substitute, giving it that one safety hit against Appletun for whenever Appletun eventually hopefully wakes up, because they could just click Close Combat, and we need Close Combat not to crit here on Appletun as the Foul Plays are coming out, and Appletun does get to wake up here, and the taunt ends on Appletun, and Tauros protects, and I protected with Appletun to predict their protect, so that we also wouldn't get taunted this turn, and we get a little bit of leftovers recovery. They go for the Close Combat again with Tauros, and they taunt with Umbreon, and we're gonna get to body press down Tauros. So now it is an Umbreon versus Appletun, and I have the Terra Fighting to not only boost the power of my body press, but it also means that we resist the foul play. And we're gonna skip here because it's kind of hard to say what I should be doing in this endgame, because they are just taunting me because they're faster than me, so it means that I don't have the ability to go for the iron defense at all, and if I use the protect on the turns that they have to taunt me, then I could stall out their taunts for a while. However, what I realized was that I was going to run out of body press and acid spray PP eventually, like really fast, because those moves don't have much PP on them. So acid spraying down the Umbreon to get special defense as low as possible, and hoping for like 2 crits in a row was the end game that I was playing out. But we kind of just play the skull game here because the Umbreon has Moonlight, so the Umbreon's going to be around for a real long time. But eventually we struggle to death because Umbreon can just taunt us into not being able to click Iron Defense or Protect, so we lose the PP war. Second game in the set, we lead Indeedee Armarouge again, and this time I just wanted Armarouge to be more offensive, as it felt like I played a pretty defensive role. So they immediately Flamethrower into Indeedee as we redirect it, and Indeedee gets taunted, and I go for the Meteor Beam into Chandelure to get the special attack buff, but also to hopefully take out whatever's in that slot. And now comes in Primarina as I Terra Grass to resist the Hyper Voice, but Indeed, he gets some Dazzling Gleam spread, but they encore us into Meteor Beam, which is not the worst thing in the world since Umbreon doesn't have Protect. We at least get a special attack buff, and we're just dealing a little bit of spread damage as the Armarouge takes the Moonblast, but the Moonblast lowers our special attack, which is not so great, but we also miss the Meteor Beam, which sucks even more. Because I feel like if we could have broken the Umbreon, we would have had a much more play with what we have in the back, but indeed he's just going to catch the foul play, and now wake up here as Armarouge unfortunately is going to get KO'd by the Moonblast. But if Indeedee manages to wake up fast enough here, we protect with Appletun to draw their taunt and their Moonblast. So Indeedee's been asleep for 2 turns. If it wakes up this turn, we can at least redirect this next turn. But Indeedee stays asleep for 3 turns, which is further adding to the RNG that we are just not having in our favor here, as they get another special attack drop on the Moonblast, and we can't Iron Defense with Appletun, unfortunately. But Indeedee gets to wake up here, and now we pretty much have to go for Dazzling Gleam, as they do Hyper Voice, and that doesn't manage to KO Appletun because we quad resist. And Apple Acid isn't doing enough to KO Primarina here, and if we had a bit more health on Indeedee, we could maybe take this foul play, but we're not taking it right now, as now they get to Moonblast into Appletun in the back, and Primarina doesn't KO itself with its Life Orb, which is too bad. And now it's Ursaluna versus a Water type and an Umbreon with foul play, and the game is just kind of over here. So yeah, just really unlucky in that second game, where we would have had so much more play if I was just able to land that Meteor Beam into the Umbreon and then like click Body Press into it. But I mean, that's honestly just the day that I've been having trying to get this Appletun team to work. So yeah, that was the Appletun team. I, again, feel like this team needs work in order to make all the pieces work. Like, I'd probably swap out Ursaluna, Slowpoke, and Copperajah in order to make this team work. I'm just not sure what I would swap them out for quite yet. Perhaps maybe just swap out Ursaluna for Blood Moon Ursaluna, so that way you can combo more with the Apple Acid on Appletun. And then instead of Slowpoke, have like maybe Mental Herb Bronzong, and then like just Golden Go in this slot. But we're going to leave it here. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, maybe consider leaving a like on the video. And even consider subscribing, because both of those things would help me out an absolute ton. And I have like the next 9 days planned out what all the team concepts are going to be. So hopefully they're not all kind of like today. But today was not a great day, I will admit. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.